It's really cool for like automation and expanding capabilities and purposes. You are now no longer one person. You can actually have teams of these agents that are extension of yourself doing whatever task you want.
Welcome to episode 22 of Tool Use, the weekly conversation about helpful AI tools that you can use today, brought to you by Enetic. I'm Mike Bird, talking to Ty Fierro. Today we're joined by Aaron Wong-Ellis, the co-founder and CTO of Mosaia, which is a platform for building AI agents without any code with the ability to give them tools like a payment system. Aaron, welcome to Tool Use.
Hi, thank you. And a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're super happy to have you here, and I think I'll ask you the question that we always start with, but I'm just kind of curious how you got into AI and what got you obsessed with AI and kind of how you got here.
How I got into AI space is that I've been building as an engineer for 10 plus years. And I've always had to dabble in some element of AI or machine learning. Prior to getting into this space, I did a lot of like the IoT space. So things like sensor fusion, stuff like that, trying to get signal, take a bunch of sensors, bind them together, turn that noise into signal that can actually turn into like a blue dot space within the indoor space. And that took an element of like machine learning. And then obviously like doing a bunch of hackathons and just really diving deep got me really into the space. I was building machine learning and deep learning models for about over like 6 years now. And some things I did was like an art project called Biometric Bias that I did like about 6 years ago, which was a very, very critical AI that basically took a photo of you and judged who you are based on the opinion of the Chicago facial database. So it either came out as like very, very like racist and discriminatory, or it loved you because you were a beautiful blonde white person. And that was, and the whole subject of that was to basically explore that, you know what, AI, we put a lot of trust into it, but it is not inherently unbiased. It is entirely based on the data we put in. And we also have to be aware and careful because human beings are biased. If we create these things, how do we determine these things can be altruistic and unbiased too? And that kind of snowballed into like LLMs, agents, hackathons, which is where I met Mike. And now I'm building an AI company.
Excellent. I'd love to hear it. Give us the Cole's notes on the AI company you're putting together.
So the AI company is called Mosaia, and we are basically aiming to build this no-code online platform for people to build agents and share them. So there's two aspects of it. One is kind of like a GitHub aspect where people can collaborate on a single agent or a team of agents because as we all know right now, the agent space is very predominantly built for the builders, right? And we're building a lot of this stuff on GitHub, but GitHub was originally designed for version control for like Ruby code bases, and then it ended up expanding. This doesn't really work for prompt engineering, so we created an environment for people to not only be able to like share these agents, but also spin them up and test them out very, very quickly. And that quickly expanded into a no-code solution where you can either grab an agent that you like, fork it, apply it to your own account, run it, or you can even pull it down to your local machine and also like start playing with it and contribute to it as well. So that's essentially what Mosaia is doing right now.
It's a really interesting approach. I'm kind of curious. I think we've had many guests on the show talking about agents, and I don't think we've ever actually asked any of our guests like what the definition of an agent is, and kind of going back to basics and kind of like what are agents, and kind of can you just give us your little background on what you think agents are?
So this is kind of like a philosophical question in a way, because I think with the space right now with AI agents, it's like a really, really hot buzzword. But if you talk to anybody who's outside of the space, they don't know what an agent is. And I think we don't really have a proper definition of it right now. Personally, what I think an agent is anything that is an autonomous, I guess you could say agent, or like a representation of what you want to do. So you give it the ability of certain tasks and tools and stuff like that for it to accomplish a task, and then you assign it a task for it to fulfill. And it's almost like you got to have like a hands-off approach, right? Which is where it's really, really tricky and is very different from coding. Coding is very deterministic systems. You write a list of instructions and you want the code to run, and whatever you say it does, the output comes out as is. Agents are a little different. Agents are more like, you know what, I'm giving you the capabilities for this AI to do something. I'll give it a task, and then We'll see if it does what I say it's going to do. And that's where it comes as a really tricky thing, because it's really cool for like automation and expanding capabilities and purposes. Like, you are now no longer one person. You can actually have teams of these agents that are extension of yourself and doing whatever task you want. But at the same time, you also kind of have to trust these things to do what it wants to do. So we're kind of moving away from being builders to more like supervisors or like managers in a way. And I guess that's like my definition of agents. It's like, it's almost like you have a whole new team that is working on your behalf.
Nice. I like it. I saw one online recently, and they said it was any program where the LLM will impact the output of the program. I don't totally align with that one, because I do think it needs to have like agency, agents. So I like your definition of it. When you put Mosaia together, the idea of having like teams of agents is really catching on. Why did you think that that was the right approach rather than just a single agent platform?
Okay, so this actually goes down to the history of Mosaia. So Mosaia originally started off as a company that was trying to use AI to solve procurement of business to business transactions. So I not only am like an engineer from a background, but I also had a brief stint as like a sales engineer. And I don't know if you guys ever done anything regarding the sales or business process. I went into this space knowing that I want to understand this and build a business one day. Man, is it like pulling teeth. All right. So you like it's very, very painful. There's a thing called the RFP process where a lot of it is like just basically dotting some I's, crossing some T's, having like these little check marks here. And it's very, very monotonous task. And for a long time, like even 5 years ago, I was like, man, this ain't the way. Like, it's got to be automated. Like, we have templates of Excel sheets of all previous answers, and then we're basically we hire people to apply those and then refine the question. So we basically started out saying that, all right, we want to smooth out to the B2B process by targeting this one specific thing. You would think one agent is sufficient enough. No, it is not. It is very, very complex process, because you're not only trying to understand the concept of the deal, but you're also trying to have things that are facilitating negotiation, budget, discovery, all of these things. And this kind of led into the route of having a team, which makes sense when you think about it. If you think about any kind of organization or business, if there's a department, there's a reason why there's a department, right? And could one AI system do it all one day? Maybe. But what I personally found was most effective is actually mimicking that department. And the results came out a lot better than having a single agent or a single AI system trying to figure this out. Because you have a lot of things in terms of context windows, understanding all of that. It was just better to actually keep the context specific to the domain expertise of what that thing does. And when you think about it, it's kind of very similar to service-oriented architecture and microservices. It's better to just create these programs that are meant and suited for one thing, and then these purposes, you just weave them together to create a bigger thing. And that's how it got into the whole multi-agent process.
Kind of reminds me of like biomimicry, like a lot of our best engineering has in like the physical world has come from, mimicking what works in nature. And in that same kind of extent, like if you're trying to, replicate something that a whole department does, like of course a single agent's not going to do it. Like replicate what's working now, which is teams of people. And that's how work has been done for, thousands of years. So it would just make sense to. But I guess one kind of question I have around teams of agents that's always been kind of interesting to me is like there's a lot of different ways that teams of agents kind of interact with each other, and there's different frameworks that make them interact differently. Like OpenAI Swarms, their framework was like specific tool calls to actually facilitate conversations between the agents. And I think Crew AI is a little bit different than that. Do you have any like opinions on like how agent teams should best collaborate or communicate with each other?
I wouldn't say like there's a one size fits all. I think it really depends on the approach of what makes sense for the use case that you're trying to accomplish, right? So I'm trying to remember, there's like a specific law of where like if you want to, Conway's law. So Conway's law is basically an organization is or whatever product or thing you build is kind of reflective to the organization you design around, right? So if you look at like how Microsoft is managed as like a company, apparently like the products they build is almost a reflection of what that company is designed internally in an organization, right? And same thing with Apple and vice versa, right? Apple is a very, very closed system, and they're almost like very secret within their own departments and how they build. So if you want to say like which approach best fits, I would say the approach boils down to what do you consider as the best approach to accomplish the task the way you want to. There is no like one size fits all. Each person wants to do their way differently. There are certain things that I would say are certain guidelines and rules of thumbs that generally work because they've worked for thousands of years and there's a reason why they exist. But in terms of like, if you say is crew AI better, is swarm better? To be honest, it really depends on the approach. And I would say if you're a business, it depends on how you want your team to build this thing. So for example, if you're more code oriented and you like building, Crew AI is a very declarative framework that's very Pythonic. You can't do anything with like declarations. You have to do everything through code. And that's the way it works. And that makes sense if you want to build with that kind of mindset. If you want to do something like AutoGen, yes, there's some code, but then you can also do things that are declarative in like a JSON file or YAML. And you can pass in those capabilities to the framework, and that then runs the way it goes. So I don't know if you're kind of like understanding where I'm going with this, but it's kind of boils down to like, how do you like to work with this? And then the decision on which tools or which approach should then follow, which is kind of like product 101 is like, you don't build based on like what you like to build, you base with the customer first in mind or the objective first, and then you work your way back from there. And I think the rules still apply when it comes to agent architectures.
Along the same lines of having the team interact, different LLMs tend to have different strengths. So some people will prefer Claude for some tasks, O1 for other tasks. Have you found when you get these team of agents together, associating certain LLMs with certain agents gets better outcomes?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's actually one of the reasons why like our platform also exists, because you have the ability to actually select and choose and swap out which LLMs you want as like a testing environment. You can really see if you wanted to like deal with one single agent or multiple agents interacting with them, you can kind of start to understand like how they actually work together, because each LLM is actually a really bizarre experience when you think about it. It's like if you ever go on the platform or you have these or you want to code it out, if you try multiple different LLMs, usually people choose one LLM or two, but when you go into like 3, 4, 5 different ones, you kind of start seeing how the personalities almost kind of come out, right? And how their approach of working together really plays a part. And I think moving forward, when it comes to building out these workflows, especially with multi-agents, like I said before, it's not a one size fits all. I think it's going to be less about coding, but more in regards to like the language you speak in terms of the instructions that you give to the agents, and with the type of LLM or the brain you want to apply to it, because each one is going to be a little different because it's entirely dependent on the data set that it was trained with. You can even start training and fine-tuning your own LLMs, and you can actually see a huge significant bump in performance when you start making that LLM target to that specific case. And then when you apply that to an agent with a specific use case, that just enhances the performance even more.
Fascinating. Yeah, I think that I love that you brought up like personality here, because like I play a lot with O1 Pro, and it's definitely has a personality, and its personality is like cold PhD level, like no, you're wrong, here's why, this is and then versus like Claude 3.5 or 3.6. I call it 3.6. I know it's not 3.6, but it's the newer Claude. It feels like you're talking to like a real person. It's like this kind of poetic, kind of creative kind of model. And I guess when you kind of mimic existing teams, there's more creative people on the teams, and there are more matter of fact types of people on teams. And the other thing I was thinking about too, while you're talking about like teams interacting with one another is how different teams work together. Like I've worked on software teams in the past where it's very autonomous and you only reach out when you really need help. And there's like a once a week meeting. And then there's other teams where it's like, all right, we check in every day and sometimes even twice a day. We all, we're constantly interacting with each other. And so I don't know, it's really interesting to think about how agent teams of the future will interact. And one interesting thing that I like about your platform is that you have multiple different agents and this idea of like a GitHub of agents. Is there any like plans in the future to have like an agent that you're talking to be able to like just like ask for what kind of resource it wants and then pull down a specific agent that's available and kind of interact with that?
Yeah, that's actually what we're looking to build right now. So right now for the roadmap, we've already built this whole repository of agent. We want to build out version control because we want to give people to have the ability to version their agents as well. But as soon as we start having the tool library, so you can already kind of create tools, but I think we're going to move more towards people building less and more of like, I want to use something real quick. Because right now, all of the main users are people who are builders, like all of us, right? If you want to get like the next billion users or so, not everyone's going to be a builder. And then we got to build things to what it looks like that appeals to them. And things like tool libraries and stuff like that will come into play where you're going to have people in the open source community that say like, you know what, not only did I build this really cool agent, I'm going to build this really cool tool and I want to allow people to use it as well and share it. Once you have these libraries all coming into play, there's no reason why you can't have like an agent that says like, okay, I'm going to go through a RAG screening of saying like, based on what your requirements of you want for an agent or a team, I'm going to construct the agent based on the entire repositories of existing agents, fork those, and then the same thing with tools. I'm going to apply these tools and add them through. And we're already seeing this in the code level, like AG2 already released like Captain Agent, and it already works if you already have an existing local repository of it. The next step is to actually have a global one that everybody's going to contribute to. And that's what we're trying to build out with that.
Very exciting. What are some of the use cases or general flows you foresee small businesses wanting to use Mosaia for?
So in terms of flows, I think there's going to be really, really interesting use cases. So, I mean, right now we typically see things that are just kind of like the low-hanging fruit. So whether it be like transcription or like just curation of content or creating content and stuff like that. With some of the power users I've seen, and this is what I've found is really fascinating, the space that I've talked to. I met this one guy, his name is Wilfred Lee. If you ever like looking up, he is designing, he is trying to leverage AI to create movies and video games. And he is personally, in my mind, is like the type of kind of users that are going to create a lot of value because his entire philosophy is like, oh, I'm a consultant for these like big studios. I'm trying to get them on board to actually create using AI and create movies and video games and stuff like that. I'm going to want to be able to share these capabilities with other people. And when you're talking about small businesses and stuff like that, anything that's like the low hanging fruit already, we can already imagine, whether it be like, you know what, just making an order and stuff like that. The really interesting use cases is the things that go beyond that when it comes to the creativity side. And those are the things like, you know what, you got Wilfred who already made this entire workflow for himself where he uses a mirror board. He plans out his whole structure. He uses ChatGPT to do script writing. He uses, I think, Udio for like audio. He uses like all these different separate systems that you got to go on each and every different website. It's just a matter of time before like he would use something like us that already binds all those together as one flow, and he can just execute it with a click of a button using a task. And those are the things that I think is very, very exciting because that actually really touches on a whole world of creativity that I personally couldn't have imagined of. It took somebody like him who's a subject matter expert in that field that really kind of broke it down, and it's just a matter of time before he breaks that down as a whole multi-agent workflow.
Interesting. I kind of want to dive a little deeper on. I think the last two questions have both kind of touched on it to some degree, but I'm really curious what the like biggest hurdle is for widespread adoption for agents. Like I feel like my mom isn't using agents right now, and I don't know when she will. But like I'm curious what the big, what what types of technological breakthroughs or what kinds of even just marketing or packaging or UX or what this looks like that gets agents into the hands of the billions instead of just the top 1% of people right now.
The AI space around agents, LLMs, all of that, I would say the space in general, not even just agents, but just the space is almost synonymous to how like the personal computing age was like in the 80s, right? Uh, the people who first had the personal computer within the 60s, 70s, and 80s were coders, people who knew how to use command line, who knew how to write their own applications, who knew how to create that. If you didn't know how to do that, you're actually just working with a really, really expensive box, right? Same thing is applied with here with AI and agents. The real people who can actually harness the true capabilities of this stuff are people who can code and people who can prompt, right? And I would say right now the adopters is still very, very small because we're all hobbyists here. We are all people who are just like, yo, I'm really interested in this. I'm going to build something with this. In order for the next billion people to adopt it, we got to basically cross over the hurdle with what personal computer did, where like before it was all command lines, and then it jumped into the graphical user interface, which was very easy to use with a mouse for your grandma to even use. We got to do the same thing for AI and agents. It's got to move away from coding and building, which it's kind of tough to do because I personally like doing this stuff. But if we want the next billion people to adopt it, it can't just be catered to the builders. It has to be catered to the next people who are beyond building. And I think when it comes to building technical products, especially when you're an engineer, it's very difficult to actually kind of separate yourself from it because we have a tendency to like to build things that we personally want and we like. But in order for the adopters of the next billion users, you got to kind of put it in mind as like, you know what, if I wanted my mom to use an AI agent, how would she use it? I don't think a lot of people ask that question. Not right now.
A lot of people that I talk to at least like using code to interact with agents because they have that granular control over it. And when you abstract it away to no code, it inherently has to put some guardrails on it and make it a little more constrained so people can use it simply. What challenges in that regard, the interface or the controllability of an agent, did you encounter when building this platform?
Oh, man, this is really, there's a lot. There's no shortage of it. So there's a few things, right? I'd say one, you have to have the guardrails in a way to actually like protect the users, but at the same time, you got to find that fine line because you don't want to kind of like stifle the capabilities. That's one. The next one is definitely education, right? So in order for us to start using or understanding prompting, I don't know how long it took for you guys personally to even like code or even like start using the API. You remember when everybody said that, oh, it's like building an AI app, it was just a wrapper around OpenAI's API? Man, how naive were we? Like when we were thinking that, right? But that's how people were originally thinking. And it was like, it's so different. There's a whole nother set of just like being able to be educated enough on how to use these things. So it's kind of like programming language. You know, before it was like basic, then C, and then we got further away, abstracted away from the complexity of low code, like very, very like machine code. Now we have Python, now we have JavaScript. It's super easy, but it's like, it's also very difficult for normal everyday people. I think it's the same thing with prompting. You know, with prompting, like, I don't know about you guys, but me, I've had situations where I've sat in front of a computer for weeks trying to get the right amount of prompting to get it to do what I want. And I think for a normal everyday user, the next question is like, okay, do we kind of do it in a way where we have to educate them on how to do this? Is it around? Or is it more like we actually build tools and capabilities around it that abstracts away that a lot of that complexity, but gives people to use however they want. And in doing that, I think it's also going to require a lot of education and understanding. I mean, even now, if you ask a normal everyday person what the definition of an agent is, I don't think anybody really knows. They just know it's a buzzword that they saw on CNBC, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing that's going to take my job, right?
Yeah, I think that personally is also like a naive statement. In that, um, yeah, you could say like you could take her job. Like personally, I think as a coder, I become less and less. I still code, but I use cursor a lot. But has it taken away my job? No. If anything, I need to have the education and the understanding to make sure that it does what it's supposed to do. And that's what I mean by like, that's where the education of the next billion users is like, you got to kind of almost reprogram people's mind and saying that, hey, you know what, you don't really have to do the grunt work, but you still need to understand how this thing works. So how does that look like? Where I think a lot of people in their minds, they're thinking like, this is an autonomous thing. I'm going to be able to step away. It's going to do whatever I want. Whoa. I mean, I don't know how realistic that is. Maybe it can one day, but by that point, like, you got to be okay with it potentially doing something that you don't want. And I don't think people are ready to step away from that.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. On this notion of, I said that as a joke, obviously. I don't think that AI is going to take our developer jobs anytime soon. I think the easier code gets to build, or like easier we can write code, the more code will be written, and the more apps will be created, and the more like kind of general value we'll have. I saw on LinkedIn this morning. I saw just like a kind of a clickbaity title that was like, some firm predicted that 200,000 jobs on Wall Street will get automated away, and then if you actually, that was just like the name of the article, but if you dig into it, it was 200,000 jobs over the next 5 years, and 200,000 jobs was like 2% of the jobs that of this group that they were talking about. And so it's, I mean, I still think it's there is a threat. I think some jobs might get automated away, but I'm kind of been kind of thinking about and curious what your thoughts are on like if jobs are automated away, like what's next? Like where do these people go? Like I have this feeling that there'll be more creativity in the world, and there'll be more people trying to do things that they're interested in and trying to build cool platforms. And once we put the power into people's hands, I think they can do really interesting things.
My perspective on that, the answer is like twofold, right? One is that automation of job is nothing new, right? When QuickBooks came around, did all of a sudden all accountants lost jobs? No, right? If anything, like more accountants came to be, and then they ended up using this as a tool. And I don't see that any different from AI. I think, yes, like this is a very, very powerful tool, but just to quote Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, is like, with great power comes great responsibility. So you need people who actually have to have the expertise and the understanding of how to use these things. And I don't mean like how to use AI. Like everybody will eventually know how to use AI. I think it's going to be synonymous to the personal computer. Everybody knows how to use a computer. But I think there's going to be certain subject matter experts that are going to become power users of certain specific AI agents and AI applications, right? I think like if there was an AI agent that can do my accounting, I personally would not be comfortable with me controlling this AI agent to do my accounting. I would rather my accountant use an AI agent and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do and gives it the right instructions and actually guides it the right way to do. And that's the way I see where the whole automation is going to be. It's like, I don't think we're going to, maybe we'll lose jobs. I don't know, right? I can't answer that. But I definitely will guarantee that we will have a huge bump in efficiency and value creation, because we are just going to be able to do a lot more with it. And I know that for a fact, right? So whether or not we're going to lose jobs, I don't think so. I think if anything, I think there's going to be more jobs created, because you're going to need more experts that know how to guide and use these AI agents. The second fold of this question in terms of the automation piece, and I do 100% believe there's going to be more creativity. And I say this because I have friends that are graphic designers who are artists, who produce music and all that. And there's two types of people, right? There's people who are like, oh my God, this thing can now do illustrations. I'm out of a job. And then there's the other people who are just like, wow, this thing can do illustration. I don't have to do that anymore. Wait a minute. Maybe I can actually start creating like a Ghibli world with it. Like that's the reaction I see. It's like you see two types of people with reactions. There's like one is like, oh my God, there's a risk, and that's like the scarcity mindset, and one is the abundance mindset. It's like, oh yeah, this can do illustrations, but wait a minute, now I can actually do this whole like I can make my own Lord of the Rings if I wanted to, because this thing can actually create a demo reel for me, as opposed to me having to figure out how to either like create my own, like do cinematography myself and illustration that would take me like years to do, or I could like hire somebody to do. And usually these people who do it with the technology right now, they create a demo reel and then use it to prove out the concept. And then they take the resources and money to hire the professional humans to actually do it. And I think that's going to be the workflow that comes into play. Obviously, the technology will improve and it's going to be more capable. But I am a huge believer in human adaptability. And I think we're always going to be one step ahead because, like, I think I like to believe that. I think that's just the way it is. Like, because the other option is like, if this thing, I think it'll surpass us in a lot of capabilities, but we build products and things to service humans, right? We build an AI that no longer needs humans. Well, I mean, you're talking about economic collapse and everything here. Well, next thing you know, the servers don't run. Next thing you know, there's no LLMs. Next thing you know, there's no AI. It does make sense if I boil it down to like first principles here.
Yeah, having a bit of agency, and I love the abundance mindset perspective because yeah, we're not just going to like roll over and let it take over everything when we have the ability to, you know, better ourselves and move things forward. Earlier on, you mentioned that you use Cursor with development during either building Mosaia or your own personal life. Do you use any other AI tools?
Oh, I use a lot. I mostly use a lot of Cursor. I used to use Continue.dev a lot. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude. I use mostly the LLMs. I haven't really used a lot of I've used the image generation. I haven't used a lot of the audio generation ones, mainly because like for my free time, I make music and it's like a whole different like mind reprogramming and workflows. But I have thought about using it as like a tool to create samples for my own production. So this kind of goes down to what I said before is like, I think these tools will going to come into play. You can use it to create an entire song, but I probably would use it to create little snippets of other songs that I would then use it to create a collage in my own music for sample.
Nice.
So use it as a tool or you can be threatened by it.
Yeah, and I'm completely inept at music, but I've been able to make songs through Suno for the girlfriend or my dad, and it's great. They're a hit. And it went from 0 to 1. It was something I wouldn't have done before. So it's all about enhancing your capability in one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the difference is like for people and for human beings, you know what? The purpose is not just to like, you know what, be born, work a job, make money, and then die. No, our purpose is to actually enjoy life and create things with capabilities. And if you like to make music and all of that personally, then you should continue on doing that. You're going to get value of that. But like, should you be threatened that something else is going to be able to make music? Well, it will never make what you're going to make. It'll never make what's in your mind, right? No matter how good you are at prompting or prompt engineering, it will never make 100% what you envision or what you hear, right? And this is what I mean by the capabilities, and this is also why like I've been building Mosaia with AI agents and stuff like that, is that you're going to have a lot of use cases and tasks of things that, you know, if it's not done 100% the way you want to, you're going to be okay with that. And this is like the perfect product for you. This is where AI is going to be best at. And that frees you up to do the things that you really, really want to do and that you want to have 100% control over it. If it's coding and you like to code, then don't use any of the AI coding assistants and the copilots, which is fine. Just make sure that like your goal is to have enjoyment out of building the process as opposed to having like productivity bump, which I think personally like we're very, very focused on. And with AI coming to play, we need to shift our mindset from like, you know, always being productive to being more like, how do we be more fulfilled? Because I think we've already hit the singularity. Like the productivity level is just going to go compounding over and over. That can't be the main goal anymore.
There's no better feeling than like a artist staring at his finished canvas. Like I also make music, and I made a little lo-fi album back in the day. And when I had it all finished and I had it published, and I even like drew my, this is before LLMs, and I drew my own little cover art for it. And once that thing was all done and published on Spotify, and I listened to it for the first time, it was a feeling that I won't ever forget. Of like, wow, I did that. That's creativity. That's like going from nothing to something, and the thing that was in my head is now there. It would have been a whole different experience doing it with AI, but I hope that more people, I hope everyone really gets to experience that kind of feeling, and I think everyone can in their own ways. But I really hope that AI is useful to people, and that people stop looking at it as this scary thing, and they start looking at it as more of a tool that they can use to create the things they've always wanted to create.
Yeah.
And there's like, I just think that's so powerful. It gets me so jazzed. I'm smiling from ear to ear right now, but I just want more people to play with these things and use it. Like, have you ever tried Kriya? It's awesome, or some of these other tools. I feel like I need to end it there. I'm just on a tirade. Maybe, how about this? Maybe we can go towards your demo now. That might be a good thing too. I'd love to see what this demo actually is.
Sure, yeah. So when you first go on Mosaia, you're going to actually see pretty much a search page, and it's going to have like a whole set of agents and teams of agents that's already at your disposal. And people can actually create these things and make them public for other people to use. And as you can see, one of these things, like somebody created, I don't know what they call this, like further v1, but you can already see like what the description of it, and you can already see all the agents that are associated and the models that they're using, right? Something is like product owner helper, and like you can pretty much click this. It will pretty much like load up the team, and then from there, like if you're logged in, if there is agent, this one doesn't have any agents right now, but you will be able to kind of start interacting with them right away. The other option is to actually go in and kind of create your own team. And we have kind of like an agent to assist you in this. So if I were to create a new team right now, I don't know, you guys want to give me like kind of like some inspiration? Like if you were to create a team or a department to help you guys, what would you guys call it?
Podcast production.
Podcast production. Okay, cool. So for description, what do you guys want this thing to do? Like, what do you want the team to do? It can be as descript, or it can be like as vague as you want it to be.
Ooh, maximize virality of the podcast.
And yeah, create like not transcripts, but the what's the word for it? Scripts. Yeah, help create like the scripts and help like source guests, maybe. I don't know, something like that.
Scripts and sourcing guests for the show. Okay, so this is actually pretty vague, right? And there's two types of ways you can go by it. One is like you can create a building instruction for a power user. So if you want to get super verbose and have the ability to do it, you can kind of go in and start doing that right here if you're a power user. But if you're not, and you're like, I want to see what this thing can come up with, you can actually just kind of hit create. And then what it'll do is that we actually have an agent that will interpret what your description is and try to create that building instruction for you. And then from there, you can basically see, do you like it or do you want to edit it? So as you can see, it already created a build prompt. And it says like, okay, build prompt, team, podcast production, team engaging. And it says like, I think you need a script generator, an AI that specializes in creating compelling, engaging podcast scripts tailored to the target audience, guest sourcing specialist, a trend analysis, which is what you guys didn't even put in the description, and a marketing strategist, right? And then it has like objectives and output requirements. And when you see this, you can kind of pretty much say like, hey, like you're not starting from scratch. You can see what this thing has generated for you, and you can edit it before you even create the team. Or you can say like, you know what, this looks good to me. I want to go with it. Do you guys want to change anything, or does this look really good for you?
Honestly, that looks fire. I'm a fan. That looks great.
Okay, cool. So right now, let's just fire this up and let's build the agents. And then it'll take roughly about, I guess, 30 seconds, depending on my network capabilities right now. And then I'll just give it a moment. And Right now, it's actually just like sending it off and building out these agents based on the instruction set. Okay, so it already built the 4 agents. And then as you can see with the 4 agents, you can even go into them even further and take a look at what their capabilities are. So if I wanted to see the trend analysis expert, I can already see like this is the README, these are the parameters, and you can already see what the prompt, and you can kind of adjust it or even change the models as you want and see which teams are associated. I think this looks really good to me. Let's just go back to the team. And if you want to kind of start playing with them, you just hit the chat. If you want to use them locally, you can export it. And right now we support AutoGen for that. So you get a YAML file and you can kind of run it locally. But let's start a new session. And yeah, what tasks do you guys want to give the team?
What would be a good topic for a podcast about AI tools?
Now, because we haven't assigned any tools to this team yet, this is just completely within like the context of what it understands now, but we can just see how they kind of brainstorm together. And as you can see, trend analysis expert is already, yeah, they're all talking to each other and they're brainstorming with each other, and you're going to get the final output at the end. And the beauty of this is actually just a testing environment. You can use the app as is if you want to and play with it. It's totally fine. Or you can kind of just use the API keys or even just like plug it into Telegram or anything like that and use that. So we offer up the infrastructure. It's completely serverless. You pay as you use. If you make a public agent, you don't pay anything beyond the inference costs with your providers. So no margins on top. But if you want to make them private, that's where it gets a little bit more expensive because you're not contributing to the community. You're actually now just like trying to build something just for yourself to use, which is totally fine. But you do have to contribute in some way or form so that everybody else can use this. So right now, as you can see, they've already brainstormed. So you can see what the thought process, what they came up with. I love the direction you're taking with the future of work, how AI tools are transforming industries. So they're already coming up with a topic for you. To build one, we should consider a few specific angles: AI tools in remote work, ethical considerations, skills development, real-world applications, highlight specific AI tools that are making waves in various industries, future predictions, invite experts to share their insights on where they see AI tools evolving in the next 5 to 10 years. Are you feeling inspired, Mike? Like, are these some good ideas for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that the audience would be keen on. So this is pretty cool, man.
Yeah. And yeah, they even drafted up a template for reaching out to potential guests for you. So you can use this as is, or you can kind of ask another question or give it another task.
The craziest part about this is it's like you just did 2 input boxes. You just went from like, all right, well, what are you trying to do? And then it made all of these agents, and then you just asked the agents, and here you are. That's actually kind of impressive because it's almost like it's kind of expanding on what OpenAI did with like the GPT's idea. You know, you go from like just some text into a GPT, but this just makes a whole team of agents, and they're all just communicating with each other, and you don't have to set any of that up. Actually, really impressive.
Yeah, and the beauty of this is like you don't have to deal with just the team. You can actually work with one specific agent that you want. So you can kind of go and navigate. I just want to talk to this one agent or like the script generator expert for a specific task. You can expand on it even further. Like our goal is like we want to make workflows. So right now this is like kind of like the V1 of this multi-agent product. The next iteration is like as people are creating more agents and agent groups and also like tools, we're going to create more complex use workflows. So you could have like a team that then comes up with an output. You can relay that to a single agent. You can have it do another task, and you can even daisy chain all of them together. And that's where we see the real magic is really going to happen, just like what Willard was doing with the whole, like he has his own workflows. Like you'd have one that's like a brainstorming for ideas, one that's like a script writer. Then after the script writer relays it, you can give it to an agent that actually does like video generation or something like that. And output could be like a movie. So that's kind of the stuff we're working on right now, trying to aim
Man,
towards.
so cool. Could you quickly touch on the tools you have currently and the ones that are in the pipeline?
So right now the tools, we don't really have any specific tools at now that is public. So the main tools that we have that is out and ready to use is all used internally, but we are going to be able to publish them soon. The reason for that is because we want to give people the capabilities to actually build tools. So we built them internally first. And then now we're going to actually build a UI or a way for people to build tools. And the way we look at it is that we're going to, kind of similar to what Vercel did, we're going to create a GitHub plugin that you can put to your repo. And then you can deploy that to the platform. And then people can see how the tool works and then choose to use that. And if they don't want to use it, like we want to make sure that if you're going to make something public for other people to use, we want to make sure that people have the ability to audit the capabilities, because you don't want people to just start using willy-nilly any kind of tool without fully understanding what it does. If they have the faith and they say like, okay, fine. I think there's going to be certain people who are like, I want to make sure that this thing does what it's supposed to do and not like just take certain data or like be able to hack my system or my team. And that's the reason why we haven't released tools yet. The internal tools we built out was more things like sourcing. So the search bar right now with all this capability that you can search is a global search. It's for being able to search agents, teams, users, etc. We're actually going to turn this into a tool for agents to use. So just like what we were talking about before, that generate a team, we're going to take the tool to be able to go through the entire library. That tool is going to be used to be able to be like, hey, instead of creating an agent or creating a new tool, I'm going to use this one that has a really good rating and I trust it, and I'm going to apply it to that. That's one of the tools that we're working on right now. We've already proved it out using this. We're going to apply this and have this capability for agents, and we're going to allow people to build their own tools and make them public. The other one is going to be version control. So we're going to allow people to be able to version their agents. So I think people are going to want to have like dev environments. People are going to want to have like other different like branches. We're debating on whether or not we're going to support Git for this, because Git is designed for coding. It's not really designed for prompts and tool cases, but we're exploring that. And the third one is going to be workflows and sequential workflows. And that's going to be like an entire canvas where instead of having like a single team and like single agents and stuff like that, you interact, you can actually make an entire workflow where wherever you go from pipe one in, it will do the entire process for what you define all the way through, and then you'll just get the end result. That's the other one. And the other two that are in the pipeline is that we are releasing a plugin store where instead of having to use the APIs, you can actually use our plugins. The first one is going to be the Telegram app, where you can go on Botfather and Telegram app, and you just put in the bot tokens, and then it'll just plug in straight to the system. And again, that's going to be open for other people to build with our SDK so that people can come up with ideas and create, and we just share it on the platform. I think those are it. And the last one is like the wallet piece, because like if people create these tools and these agents, we don't know whether or not we're going to allow people to monetize them yet. That's like way down the road. But we're thinking like, hey, maybe people, if they're building these tools, are going to want to be able to like make a little bit off of it. But that's just really far down the road at the moment.
Super cool. Wow, that's quite the roadmap. I'm excited to keep up with it and see how it progresses. Well, this has been really fun. It feels like learned a lot today. I am excited to play with the app, and yeah, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's quite amazing what three people can do, right? Because right now, I remember hearing on a podcast or like a video on YouTube where they said that, oh, it's like we're gonna see more and more people like with billion-dollar companies that are just comprised of like 2 or 3 people or something like that. And I think with like AI agents and being one of those like people who are like building these systems, I'm actually starting to see it. And I think more and more people with these capabilities is going to do a lot of the things that you want to do, like if the admin work or the overhead and the stuff you don't want to do, and then you can focus more on the real value that you create. Whether it be like a podcast and you want to create content, you should be focused on that without having to like fret all about over like the nilly-willy stuff, right? Not saying they're not important, you should have attention, but there's a difference between having like an expert that is at your disposal to do something and then you can actually put the thumbs up or thumbs down, as opposed to you going ahead and doing it yourself or having to hire somebody as an expert when you don't even know if you're actually right there ready yet. And I think this is where a lot of this stuff is going to be huge value that's going to be created. We're going to see a lot more people who are going to want to create more stuff, like whether they're going to be more entrepreneurs, more creators, people who, yeah, when you don't have to worry about having to build these big monolithic organizations, what are you freed up to do? You can do a lot of things, man.
Such an exciting future. Well, before we let you go, anything you want to plug? Anything you want the audience to know?
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to use it, we are live right now, and we are offering, I believe, like $5 to $20 credits for everybody to use for free for new accounts. So if you guys want to check it out and create an account, it's mosaia.ai, and then you can start using it right away. We are about to release 2 new products on that, 2 new features. So like that's going to be exciting. If you guys want to follow me, you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's Aaron Wong Designs at LinkedIn, and on Twitter it's like Aaron Wong-Ellis at Aaron Wong-Ellis. Yeah, so you guys can check me out there.
Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.